Hello everyone, welcome back. It's Twilight in the Wizard Study once more, and I'm Herrera, Kamin. And I know it's been a while. I've been hard at work on a novel this summer, and that's been taking up most of my time. It's the sequel to my novel Morgana Wine, which goes on sale on August 1st, which is just around the corner, a little more than a week away as of recording this video. So I haven't really had a lot of time to make videos, but I thought, it's high time to get back into it. And I thought an interesting subject for this video would be UFOs. Now, this is maybe a little bit of a departure from the kinds of videos I was making before. Now, who here believes in UFOs? And that's kind of a weird question because, of course, UFOs are there. I mean, we know that. We don't know what they are necessarily, but they certainly exist. Unidentified flying objects or unidentified aerial phenomena. Which doesn't sound quite as culturally resonant, and that is obviously by design. So why am I talking about UFOs today? Because I'm fascinated by UFOs. I love the subject of extraterrestrial visitors or interdimensional visitors to our world. But I want to talk about UFOs in fiction. And maybe there is a reason that this is on my mind, maybe to do with the novel I've been working on this summer, perhaps. Actually, there is one director who I think has an abiding interest in UFOs and aliens, but in particular the culture of UFOs in the United States of America, dating back to the 1950s, maybe even the 40s. And that is a whole can of worms. Once you start going down that rabbit hole, you find that there were airships. Speaking of which, I don't know if that picks up on the microphone there, but something just flew over the city of Vancouver, or is flying over the city of Vancouver. Probably just an airplane or a jet, but maybe it's a UFO. A great sound echoing in the skies, Anyway, sorry. Okay, I'm sorry, I got sidetracked there. Where was I? So when you go down the rabbit hole of the history of UFO sightings, there were phantom airship sightings in the 1890s and into the early years of the 20th century. And of course it goes way earlier than that as well, into ancient history. UFO sightings are not a modern phenomenon. They date back centuries and centuries and millennia even. So I want to talk a little bit about Steven Spielberg. Now, obviously, Steven Spielberg and UFOs. You got to start with Close Encounters of the Third Kind. It's still going. How appropriate for this video. If the sound isn't too distracting or unpleasant, I'm just going to leave it in here because it's very interesting. Probably just an airplane. I mean, I'm not looking at it. Probably, okay. So, Steven Spielberg and UFOs. Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Now, one of the things that I find so interesting about that movie is that Steven Spielberg had access to he had a bit of an insider's access in the subject of classified files from the U.S. government when he was making that movie. And so Close Encounters of the Third Kind comes very close to being one of the best fictional interpretations on screen of the UFO as it pertains to American history and the culture of the United States in the 20th century. But something that interests me a lot now is that Steven Spielberg is apparently working on another UFO movie. And that's going to be coming out on June 12th, 2026. So less than a year from now, we're getting what might be a follow-up to Close Encounters of the Third Kind and what might be a fictional film about the current age of disclosure. And I just said the sentence, Age of Disclosure. That is a movie that I have been dying to see. That one is a documentary, not involving Steven Spielberg, not made by Steven Spielberg, but The Age of Disclosure is a documentary that I still haven't figured out how to watch. I don't know where it's available. I assume that it will be available at some point. I heard that they are waiting for a theatrical release for it, but anyway. So, super quick, what is my fascination with UFOs? Why am I fascinated by it? Because there is a very powerful... there's a very strong culture of ufology that is very aesthetic, and it's very focused on a certain type of experience and encounter, but it has all of these branches and offshoots into all kinds of different things. And I think, one of the things that interests me so much about that is that, first of all, we're living in a very interesting time for UFOs. We are currently experiencing the Age of Disclosure. Not the film, but the era that we live in, where over the last few years, a lot of very interesting information has been shared with the public, but in a very murky and obfuscated way. And I think that's by design. So there are a few different things I want to talk about when it comes to the era of disclosure that we're living in now. Okay, so let's start with a very simple and important question. Do I believe that aliens have visited the planet Earth in spacecraft, in extraterrestrial vehicles of extraterrestrial origin, the nuts and bolts craft? Do I believe that? And all I can say about that is that I want to believe. I want to believe it's true. I want to believe that amongst the scattering of stars in the night sky visible from the planet Earth, some of those stars are actually the lights of alien crafts. Of course, I want to believe that. Do I actually believe it? Well, I'm not sure. I don't know. It could be true. It could also not be true at all. There are all these different possibilities with it. There could be aliens out there. The night sky could be full of them. Outer space could be full of extraterrestrial life. I firmly believe that we're not alone in this universe, but I don't necessarily believe that, extraterrestrial life would ever be able to make it to Earth. Because of the vast distances involved, and the expansion of the universe, and everything. And, there's... outer space, the universe we live in is so big. It's kind of hard to put it into words. And it's getting bigger as far as we can tell. It's expanding. And we already know that there are places in the universe that we will never be able to reach. You guys hear that? There it is again. Another UFO sailing over Vancouver. I couldn't have timed the filming of this video better. Do I believe that aliens have made it to the planet Earth? Not necessarily, but I wouldn't be hard to convince if I had a close encounter of the third kind, or even the second or first kind. And there are some UFO encounters that have been reported over the course of the 20th century and the 21st century that are undeniably captivating and compelling and hard to completely write off. And my favorite one is the aerial school phenomenon in Zimbabwe. I believe it was Zimbabwe, where a large number of school children reported a very interesting encounter with with an extraterrestrial craft and extraterrestrials. And later in life, the things that those people said, once they were adults and reflecting on it, are fascinating. And I encourage you to look up the aerial school phenomenon. But that's not what this video is about. So, we live in the era of disclosure. Allegedly. Now, what does that mean? What does that mean? Because the way that the information has been shared with the public has been very murky, very intentionally obfuscated, hard to parse through, difficult to pin down. And that is evidently by design. Now, sometimes I think if I were, government entities around the world, but especially the US government, and I wanted to release information to the public about UFOs and kind of bring disclosure to the public about this subject, but I also wanted the public to not believe it or to just view it as part of the sea of noise, of endless, infinite information that we are being bombarded with every day, and to have it not be a big deal, to have it not resonate in the public consciousness at all. I think I would play it exactly as it has been played over the last few years, over the last 5-6 years, that kind of thing. But what does that mean? Are there extraterrestrial visitors coming to Earth? No, it doesn't necessarily mean that. The UFO disclosure, or UAP disclosure, but right there, you see, the term UAP does not have the cultural resonance that UFO does. It's very much by design, right? Making it less clear what is actually the nature of what is being released to the public, being shared with the public, okay? It's by design, which is why I'm going to continue to refer to them as UFOs. So I think that it's very possible that what is behind all this information being released, or whatever you want to call it, because information doesn't seem like quite the right word, but I also don't want to say misinformation or disinformation, but whatever is behind it, I think, if I'm to be objective about this and not follow what I want to believe, but what I really think is the most likely scenario here, I think the most likely scenario is that various governments around the world have been testing all kinds of secret aerial weaponry. And Black Ops programs have been testing all kinds of ships, vessels, weapons mainly, because that's one of our main fixations as a species, is weaponry, how to blow each other up, right? So I believe that is the most likely scenario, that these UFOs that are now confirmed to have been detected by various government bodies are simply secret programs being run by Black Ops entities, not just connected to the US government, but from all around the world, and that the more official government bodies have been detecting them, and that this is all kind of logged and tracked, and that they're now releasing this to the public in a way that is designed to make the public pretty uninterested in it. And I would think that they've been pretty successful if that's the goal. But if I were, on an extraterrestrial craft and wanted to keep my presence in the skies of the planet Earth secret, I would also want this exact same thing to have happened. Right? I would also have designed disclosure in such a way that it is not clear. It is murky to the public, and in a way that just makes the majority of people's eyes glaze over and think it's not an interesting enough subject to pursue, and that it's hokey and baloney and bullshit, basically. So that's kind of my 2 cents on the matter of this current era we live in. But let's talk about the cultural resonance just a little bit. So Steven Spielberg's Close Encounters of the Third Kind from 1977 is a great example of a UFO film that is really informed by the body of knowledge about UFOs that was available at the time. And as I mentioned, Steven Spielberg has had kind of a window into the He's had a bit of an insider's knowledge of the subject. J. Allen Hynek was involved in the creation of that film. And, as a consultant. And if you're not aware, J. Allen Hynek is the person who came up with the classification system of alien encounters or UFO encounters that gives the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind its title. A close encounter of the first kind is a sighting. A close encounter of the second kind is physical evidence of a UFO. And a close encounter of the third kind is contact with alien intelligence. And, of course, a close encounter of the fourth kind is abduction. So it's very possible that that film, that is to say Steven Spielberg's Close Encounters of the Third Kind, really does speak the most strongly to the cultural resonance of UFOs. And that's why I am excited for Steven Spielberg's upcoming film that releases on June 12th, 2026, about disclosure. Because I think Steven Spielberg is fascinated by this subject, maybe as much as I am, possibly more, probably more. And I think that he wants, as far as I can tell, Spielberg wants people to be interested in that subject. And, UFOs have made their way into some of his other films. One of them that comes to mind is Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull from 2008, and say what you will about that movie, but that movie has a pretty amazing sequence in which a UFO rises from where it was buried under the surface of the planet Earth and vanishes into another dimension. And that movie talks about the aliens in that movie are interdimensional travelers. And they come from the space between spaces. That's kind of... And, for some people, I think that ruined the film. It didn't for me. I think that's a great movie. The fourth best Indiana Jones movie, but still a good Indiana Jones movie, in my opinion. And I think there are 4 great Indiana Jones movies. The original trilogy, of course. And then the fourth movie. And I absolutely hated the fifth Indiana Jones film. But I'm not here to talk about that right now. So, UFOs. Do you believe that extraterrestrial visitors have ever come to the planet Earth? If so, what do you find are the most compelling encounters that have been reported? Either in recent history or dating back into the past, because, UFO encounters range back to, 50,000 years ago in ancient China. That sort of thing. So I think that this video is going to be the first in a series of videos I'll make on this subject. I want to delve into this subject because it's very important to me. Because it's something I'm deeply fascinated by, and I want to dig down into it and find out the truth. And I think we live in a very interesting era for uncovering the truth about this subject, as far as it will ever be available to members of the public and people who aren't, working, at the highest levels of government secrecy. So, yeah, I think that's all I've got for today. This video is sort of an introduction to this subject on my channel, and yeah, UFOs. So I got a question for you now, if you've made it this far in the video. What is your favorite UFO movie? And I don't just mean movies about aliens, so the Star Wars films wouldn't count as UFO movies. But for example, Nope by Jordan Peele. That is a wonderful, wonderful UFO movie. There are films like Fire in the Sky, the Travis Walton story. And I think mileage varies on that one, depending on who's watching it. Some people really like it. I'm not sure it really did it for me, but it definitely had its moments, that's for sure. And of course, the Travis Walton story itself is very interesting. And these are just a few examples. So, that's all for now. I will be back soon with more to say on the subject of UFOs, extraterrestrial visitors, and the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, which I believe is out there somewhere in some form. But will we ever encounter it? Will it ever come to Earth? And will we recognize it as alien life if it ever does? What do you think? Does this subject make your eyes roll back in your skull? Or are you fascinated by it like I am? And being fascinated by it doesn't mean you believe totally that aliens are here in our skies now. It can mean that you just are interested in it, that you want to believe. Like Fox Mulder from the X-Files, you want to believe. And wanting to believe is a powerful thing in itself. So that's all I got for now. Thank you for tuning in. It's Twilight in the Wizard Study. And I'm your resident crazy author talking to a wall about subjects I find deeply, deeply compelling. That's all for now. Take care until the next video. I will be back with the continuation of The Last 7 Eternities of Julian Slade, scored. It just, those videos do take a while because, you know, I read the chapters out loud and then I create a soundtrack for them. It's all original, all cooked up, you know, by my own blood, sweat, and tears. And so it takes a while, but I will be back with the remaining 4 chapters. And I'll be back to share my thoughts about other things, movies coming up. The movie Weapons is almost upon us, Zach Cregger's second feature, and that's one of my most anticipated films of the year. And then the show Alien Earth will be airing on August 12th, and I think I'm going to cover that series as it airs. So I think I'll be posting a review of the first 2 episodes when they drop on August 12th. So stay tuned for that. And until then, take care for now. See you in the next video.